questions from last
Yeah.
week. I'll just get through them really quick.
We are live, I think, on everything. Let me check.
We're getting going here.
Yep. All right.
All right.
It looks like we are live.
Welcome everybody to show 101.
102.
102.
Yeah,
I thought
that's all. That's all janky.
Uh,
I did a Facebook. Right. Okay, cool.
as always, this is the 034 Motorsport live chat. I think that's the name that has generated organically over time. We are here to do a Q&A session. Ask us anything style questions.
It's like Instagram did.
We typically focus on 034 Motorsport, questions about our product, services, our history, anything you'd like to know about the company. There are lots of questions about product ETAs and updates. We've kind of backed off on getting too into those over time because they just seem to generate more questions and concerns. But regardless, if you'd like to ask, you may answer, we may not. And we take a no BS approach to everything. My name is Javad. This is Nate. And so we have some questions left over from last week that we're going to jump through real quick. But go ahead and submit any new questions you have into whatever viewer you're watching, and we'll start answering them as well. So last week someone asked, will 034 be staying in the Bay Area? Yes, we have no plans to leave the Bay Area. We've been here in Fremont since 2003, approximately. Yes, currently no plans to leave. It's not a cheap area to do business in, but we have good access to really great staff. Being near Silicon Valley has its positives and negatives. Being in California really hasn't been an issue for us. I think we're arguably one of the biggest and best Volkswagen Audi tuning companies in the world, and we've done it right here in the what do people call it? Not California or
California,
California, right here in California the whole time. Tuning cars and making some of the fastest cars in the world, and also the most expensive place in the world too. So I think a lot of good things have come from that, and if you can survive here, like they say, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah, and I mean some of the lesser fun side of things were down to like the certifications and stuff. We're actually quite lucky we're here. We can just send a car. It's hours of driving versus days of driving to get a car to the test centers for carb certification, EPA certification, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been bad. And kind
carb
of
exemption.
One of the centers of the automotive universe is Los Angeles, which is only about 5 hours from here, or 3 hours if I'm driving. Let's see. Any timeline updates for Stage 2 ECU and TCU tunes for B9.5 RS5?
We are working on it as quick as we can for the Stage 2 TCU. We will be releasing the. Can you read that one again?
Timeline
2 plus? Yeah.
2 plus.
Yep, that's coming. That's
no, on Stage 2 ECU and TCU for B9.5. It's just B9.5.
Yeah, I believe there's a small incremental Stage 2 update that'll be rolling out soon, just for some like boost control tweaks, but nothing super impactful. 2 plus and 1 plus will be dropping soon.
Will 034 make mods?
That was an RS5.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading across the screen here. My goodness gracious. Yes, those are good. Those are all locked in. Those are updated. You should have just gotten an email about the updates that came out for things that were released. We're not doing Stage 2 on that.
And we need to talk about that.
Yep.
So for B9, and this is B9.5 as well.
Yep, same.
So for B9, B9.5 RS5, 2.9T, and I guess that's RS4 as well. We will not be doing a Stage 2 file because we could not generate or measure any power increase.
Something that
Stage 2
was not justifiable.
So if you are racing on a racetrack and you remove your calic converters, you will be no better off than if you just had the factory cats installed. And so we cannot justify releasing a Stage 2 tune that doesn't make more power than Stage 1. The only reason then would be to remove the perfectly good flowing factory cats for Stage. We're talking about stock turbos Stage 1. Now this will likely change with like bigger TT options. TT 720 will probably justify a catless file. But on stock turbos with stock cats, there is no additional power to be had by removing the cats. So then the entire reason for this file existing would be to just turn off the check engine light. And that's not what stage 2 is about for us. Stage 2 is about making more power for people who race. And, you know, that there's no point in it. So if you currently have a B9 RS5 and you have removed your factory cats and you still have stock turbos, at this point we would recommend reinstalling your factory cats and running our stage 1 file. It's going to produce the peak maximum power that those turbos can generate. There is no additional power to be had by removing the factory cats. As a bonus, your car will run extremely clean. It will be totally smog legal, and you will sleep very well at night knowing that you are helping keep pollutants out of the air for future generations and yourself. But yeah, this was kind of something we had to. This is the first time we've seen it. In other stage 2 applications, we've always been able to generate more power, but we were not able to. So I hope our customers and the community respects that decision that we made. We could have come to market with a file. It would have cost about $100, and it would have only simply shut off your check engine light for cats or test pipes that don't make any more power than the factory cats. Yeah. And high flow cats for these cars aren't cheap either. We sell them, and I think we're confident that our high flow cats, our high flow racing cats, do flow a lot more than stock. But if the turbos aren't generating that flow, then you don't need a file to support that yet. I think the high flow cats and things like that will come into play with big turbo options. And even then, I'm anticipating that the effects will be relatively minimal. It could be another 10 or 15 horsepower or something we haven't tested.
That's the nature of restrictions too, right?
I'm just surmising.
It's not like you're going to gain power everywhere. If you just make a pipe bigger, or for your flowing, you've got restrictions up the line that dictate the amount of airflow getting through the motor, and that pipe's a given diameter, it can flow a certain amount. If you're not impeding your current flow with the diameter of pipe you got, you're not going to pick up any power.
Possibly any future updates on the roll correction kit to fit all big brake kits on MQB. I mean, there's not much we can do.
All big brake
The big brake kits out there that don't fit have a really high offset that pushes the rotor right up into where the ball joint space exists. So aside from like eliminating the ball joint, which you can't do, or like re-engineering the ball joint to be much more compact, and who knows how that would work. The ball joint is housed in a cast lower assembly that's what bolts to the control arm. And we did make the front wall thickness of that casting as thin as we could, of what we would consider safe. So that did give additional clearance. So our ball joint does have more clearance than the factory ball joint, but it's never gonna be enough for some of these other brake kits. So and because of the nature of our ball joint, which changes the roll center and everything, it aggravates the fit problem. Let's see, anything else from last week? Will 034 make mods for electric vehicles such as Audi E-Tron lines? Yes, we will. It's down the road a ways. The cars are good. The customers aren't really there yet. So we are waiting for the electric car enthusiast to emerge, but we haven't really seen a lot of people requesting those products yet. We will be releasing more and more products for electric vehicles. But currently, and I would say at least for the next few years, 99.9% of all tuning revenue generated in the automotive aftermarket will be from internal combustion engine modifications, not electric cars. It's possible 5 years from now that could go to like 1 or 2%, and maybe in 10 years it could be 20%. Who knows? I'm just making up. What I'm saying is currently there is no electric car tuning market. because that's not why people buy electric cars. They buy electric cars for environmental reasons, for they don't want to spend money on gas. They like how quiet they are. They love Elon Musk, the drama, and so they want to buy those. I don't know what it is, but there is just a small segment of the Tesla market that is now focused on tracking Teslas and perform. I mean, there are tuners out there doing it. They constitute almost 0% of all tuning. So, but we will definitely do that, and our engineering skills and expertise completely applies to electric vehicles as well. Electric motors generate torque, just like gas engines, and there's nothing magical about that. We will make electric cars exciting too. They'll just be really quiet.
They'll just be much quieter.
All right, let's jump into new questions that are pouring in. If you have a question from last week that didn't get answered, drop that in as a new question, and we'll go from there. When will you guys come out with in-depth engine components and performance for the B8.5 S4? You will see products being released this year, so stay tuned. We will release what we think is needed. We're not necessarily gonna recommend anyone go like build a super duper motor with everything, but the factory engines are quite good, as we've seen, and there's an opportunity to make some small improvements. Updates on the RS3 oil catch can, they are coming. We are still doing testing and validation, and there are a few things we want to understand better before we release it to make sure that customers have the best experience. Hopefully in the next few months, but we're not ready to release it yet. I have a 2020 Audi RS3 and was looking into getting motor and trans mounts. Has there been any failures? I've seen other companies' mounts. Some trans mount housing holes have broken. No, I mean on our motorsport mounts for the Daza, I've only seen one failure, and this was on some car that was running 7 or 8 second quarter miles, and I don't even think it was the transmission. I mean, obviously our transmission mount wasn't the problem. Our transmission mount didn't fail, but I do believe that car has seen lots of stuff breaking, including lots of other drivetrain components. So I wouldn't use that as an example. The average stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 Daza TTRS with 800 to 1,000 horsepower that runs 8 and 9 second quarter miles, we have not seen any failures of those, and it's certainly not of the mount itself. The mount is extremely durable and well engineered. So if you're interested, I would look at the street sport stuff that we offer. Vibrations are not there's NVH, but that's been a very popular option. We sell tons of those.
Folks have noticed the last year or so is that when you're installing the trans mount, you can side load it accidentally on the casing. That's where
installation is got to be done correctly. The trans mount with those 3 bolts on top, you've got to make sure it's not twisted, it's not putting some other torque or and that they have to be torqued correctly and enough. If that gets loose, that will very rapidly rip your casing apart.
Well, and if like what Nick just said, if the mount is not installed in the right position and it's bottoming out, then the transmission will bottom out on the mount, and then there's no more compliance left. So there's no more twisting, and the only thing left to give is the aluminum itself. So, but what we are seeing from competitor products is the mounts like ripping in half and destroying themselves. One 3-letter company out there I've seen quite a bit of. So, you want to stay away from that, obviously. The stage 2 on S4 S5 B9 seems to run hotter than stage 1 in normal driving conditions. Is that possible? I see 208 to 212 oil temp in traffic and don't seem to hear the fan working as much versus stage 1.
Yeah, I'm guessing what you're experiencing is just you were probably between a couple of updates that we did. We did dial back the aggressiveness, you could say, of the cooling we were asking for, just because in some environments and some vehicles they weren't able to hit that lower target we were trying to get to, and it just was causing a couple of fault lights and situations, and the fans would just stay on full steam because it was trying to get to a temperature that was basically unable for it to reach. So we did adjust that. That's what I'm guessing is what you saw. Is you may have happened to go from stage 1 to stage 2 and get that update in the process.
Yeah, and we need to clarify. You said hotter, but cooler is not better. There is the right temperature for oil,
Right.
and that 208 to 220 range is the right temperature that your oil should be at. Cooler would not be better. At that temperature, the oil has the right viscosity and lubrication properties, and water is evaporating out of the oil from condensation in an optimal way. If temperatures are lower, your oil will fill up with water. That's not the correct operating temperature for the oil or the engine. So don't fall into the trap of cooler is better.
Yeah, no, we did make some adjustments to that to make sure everybody was.
What you have right now is the correct way. We were accidentally overcooling it unintentionally, and in some climates it was way too cold. So I'm really interested in stage 3 for B9, but would be great to see an option for TTE 510. That's the thing.
It's a tiny turbo upgrade.
That would just be a waste of time.
It's not nearly as popular as the turbo system stage 2, which is comparable in performance but dual ball bearing cheaper. So it's an upgrade over your stock turbo, but it's hard to constitute stage 3 with that. It's more of like a plus if you really.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if everybody started running 510s, we'd do it, but we're not going to go out there and try to convince anyone to do a 510. That's really not much of an upgrade.
The turbo system 2 is likely the option that would suit that route.
But like I said, we will support what people want. But as far as us going out and convincing the market to do it, is stage 2 with high pressure fuel pump coming for B9s? I think it will be a significant power bump from stage 2. Yeah, this must be 3.1T. Yeah, it's coming. It's going to be a power bump in the mid-range area, not necessarily peak power.
Yep.
So
and only on E85
on
is where you're going to see the bump. 91 and 93 are not pump limited, so it's going to be just wherever we're limited on pump in the stock situations where you're going to get a bump in power. And that is in the mid-range, kind of torque onset area of these motors.
Why do so many of the aftermarket high-pressure fuel pumps for the B9 S4 S5 fail? Also, do you plan on making any built motor files for B9 3.0T?
Built motor files.
Yeah, what did I say?
Build it.
No, built motor. If so, are we talking about big turbo kits instead of hybrid turbo? And as far as why high-pressure fuel pumps fail, we can't really say. They're not our products. I think APR had a problem initially, which was related to how they were making them, and they've since fixed it. As of now, I don't think we're seeing a lot of problems.
No, I think things have settled down.
We haven't seen them on any of the cars we're running.
Honestly, this has kind of been a thing with every new pump that's come along through the years. It was even the original 2-liter FSI pumps. The first, I don't know how many iterations and batches from everybody had issues until they got the manufacturing process sorted out and the tolerances kind of dialed in. This is just another round of those teething problems, you could say.
And then built motor files for we're not currently getting into built motors right now. In fact, I'm not aware of anyone that has one, and we haven't really even seen a need for that. I mean, we're not really holding back.
Not for a fully built motor at this point. We have there's some maybe some valve train stuff we've looked at, but
no, I know. But as far as our
full pistons, rods,
tune is turbo limited. It's not necessarily motor limited at all. In all our testing, we've had no issues. So I think we'll get to a point where built motors will be required, and that could mean full frame turbos, various types of hybrids that can produce lots of power. But that's probably at least a year or two out. And right now you don't need to worry about that. You just slap a 710 on, do the supporting mods, flash your ECU, and you've got like, 10-second flat car, basically, huh? With very little setup.
Yep.
What's the best way to switch back to the 93 tune from E85 or B9 S5? To go back to 93, but I'm wondering if I should switch the tune back first. We have a video on this.
We have videos on all these.
Yeah. So hopefully that's been linked. Please look at the video. There's a number of different ways you can do it, but the video goes through it the best way.
Yep.
And I think we've been talking about this almost ever.
Yep.
Since water meth injection has been known to clean up valves, would it be frowned upon to run water meth injection purely to try to clean valves of carbon?
Yeah, would it be harmful? Is that what it said? Frowned upon? It's not frowned upon. I question the benefit of it and how much it actually cleans them.
I mean, it wouldn't be hard to find out, but even injecting some water into your ports is not going to hurt much.
Yeah.
I mean, it could reduce your power output.
It's certainly not as good of a solvent as good old gasoline.
Yeah. It's interesting. Not all VAG motors have carbon issues to the same degree.
No, it totally varies, and it's down to the I think the crankcase ventilation system and where
the B8 and the B7 RS4 were horrible.
Terrible.
The worst.
Yep.
GTIs don't seem to be nearly as bad.
They're pretty bad. The
But
3 liter,
not
the 3 liter,
the same way. I mean, we've had
No, the
RS4s coming in that wouldn't have been rough.
yeah. No, the RS4s and the high rev V8 motors are terrible. The 3 liter V6 has actually been one of the better ones that I've seen.
Yeah. No, I never.
They still benefit from a carbon cleaning, but it's not like the.
It must have to do with like the valve overlap.
Yeah, it's not like the every 30,000 miles or 25,000 miles that the RS motor, the V8s needed.
Yeah, those needed every 30,000.
And it was
it
was like 30 wheel horsepower. It was on an NA motor. It was substantial.
Anything with port injection, that pretty much solves the problem.
Yep.
Which is why they're going back to it. Any updates on 8Y S3 developments? Yeah, I mean we are developing new products. We have some really nice intakes coming for that. We have some really nice turbo inlet options. So the interesting thing to note, and I think in our typical fashion, be wary of buying any high flow turbo inlets for any of the new Mark 8 Evo MQB applications. The factory turbo inlets are extremely good, and basically we could not find a way to make just a turbo inlet by itself bolt in that flows much better than stock. I think we got to about 3% better than stock or something like that. We don't want you to spend $120 on a part that only flows 3% better than stock. So what we've done is we've taken a more holistic approach, and we will not be selling a turbo inlet by itself. We will be selling basically a whole turbo inlet air intake system. So while we could not update the turbo inlet by itself, we could update the amount of peak flow between the air filter and the turbo, and we can increase that substantially. So that's the product we'll be offering. With the Mark 7 MQB 2.0 Ts, there were nice gains. I think our inlet flow is at least 30 or 40% better than stock. That's measurable horsepower that you gain just by swapping the inlet out, and with no other changes. But on these cars, that's not the case. So be wary of other tuners releasing turbo inlets, bragging about how good they flow or whatever. You're gonna see other companies doing it. It's because they don't do testing, they don't do validation, they don't care, and they're just gonna tell you it flows more and to sell you a part to make some money. We're here to make money, but we want to do it substantively because the parts actually do what they say. But otherwise, springs are all lowering. Dynamic Plus lowering springs are coming. Some of our existing sway bars already fit, have been tested. So if you go to our website and you load in the new Mark 8 applications, you could see those products. Have those been updated on the website? Yeah.
I believe so.
They freaking better have by now. It's been a few weeks, so we will be verifying today that our applications are current. But yes, we have a lot of stuff for this. And then as far as tuning the new stuff, nobody
yeah.
is really in those ECUs tuning those yet. Maybe in the next 6 to 12 months we'll
Yep.
see some activity, hopefully. But for now, it's tuning boxes like what Racing Line released recently. So that's kind of all that's of it. Do any B9 tunes work on the 2021 B9.5 S4?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep, absolutely. We're still working on the TCU side to get you a stage 2 file, but all of it still works. We've got all the way up through TT 710 on those. Stage 1, stage 2, TT, and then stage 1 TCU as well.
I have a stage 1 tune on my B8 SQ5, and the cooling fans run on high even on initial start. Is that normal? It is normal if you have the ALC turned on, and so you need to push the cruise control stalk to turn off the ALC. As long as ALC is on, your fan.
Yeah, so advanced launch control, we've only got so many user inputs you're able to kind of have and interact with the ECU. So we kind of have to use the cruise control signals. And that dictates that anytime the cruise control is on, we are able to then use it for, advanced launch settings. It can catch you out if you don't know about that or weren't prepared for that. You'll see your fans are just on because it's, you're basically in your advanced launch control setup. So yeah, to get around that, just turn your cruise control off if you're not using it. And then the advanced launch control also doesn't affect cruise control at all. It'll still work just like it did before. Once you've, I think it's like 10 kilometers an hour or something, it completely disables everything involving that. So.
B9 SQ5 is stage 1 or stage 2 compatible with the opposite rear bumper that comes with exhaust tips.
There is no change.
Yeah, no, it's totally
Is
fine.
the stage 1, stage 2?
It's a bumper that gives you real exhaust tips. That's it.
On the SQ5, yeah, because the
You mean
SQ5
is our
was
tuning
silly.
compatible with
Yes.
those?
Yeah,
Oh,
tuning,
absolutely.
yeah, heck yeah.
Our tuning doesn't really care what exhaust you're on.
And that, yeah, like I think that's literally just a tip swap.
Yes.
Yeah, which isn't even really changing your exhaust. No tip considerations have been taken into our tuning.
Yeah. Just the
Is
tips.
it
not
also
usually as
weird that
impactful.
exhaust tips are called tips?
It's a
They're
tip?
not really the tip of any of them. They're nice. It's like the end.
It's like
You're like calling your butthole.
it's the butthole of your engine.
Calling a butthole a tip. What's the opposite of tip? Bottom?
Tail. I mean, tip
Tip
tail.
tail. Oh yeah, they should be called tail exhaust tails.
Tailpipe.
tails.
Wait a minute.
Tailpipes.
Wait.
Oh, they're literally called that. Wow.
We've come full circle.
See, I was right. Somebody thought of this a long time ago. Tailpipes. So why are they called exhaust tips?
We're American.
It still begs the question. Wow, that was nice job. I teed you up real nice on that.
But in reverse, what are they?
Oh.
But you're going backwards.
The exhaust is going forwards.
No, it's going backwards.
Yeah,
They're called reverse tips. They're the tip of the reverse. Any reports of excessive engine vibration from 65 to 85 miles per hour using 034 engine mounts on my B8.5 S4? Okay, so here's the problem. Any engine-related vibration will have nothing to do with vehicle speed. It would have to do with engine speed, which would be RPM. So if you are having a vehicle vibration and it does it at any RPM in any gear, then you have some kind of problem with the balancing of your drivetrain that's spinning. So and then they mentioned I have new tires, CV axles, a new lower front suspension, 034 lower front suspension. Yeah, the suspension probably has nothing to do with it. Yeah, I mean it could be anything that's rolling, including wheel bearings. You could have a brake rotor that's out. I mean, but I'm just saying. So if you experience this vibration at say 70 miles an hour, and you shift into various gears, and you don't feel a change in the vibration, then it has nothing to do with the engine. Now, the engine mounts will have resonances at various RPMs. They should be pretty minimal depending on the density motor mount you got. The street density motor mounts for the B8, if that's what you have, have very good NVH characteristics. We get no complaints about those. If you have the track mounts or our motorsport mounts, yes, you're going to feel more vibrations at certain RPMs. Intercooler difference between AWE to Wagner on B9 S4 Stage 3. We have not done a lot of testing on that in particular, although the AWE is bar and plate, the Wagner is tube and fin, which we really like, and please check out the link where we discussed that.
Yeah, we last week I think it was, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I bought a TTE 810 from your website. How long until that file will be released for B9.5? That's coming up on our engineering schedule.
Yep.
We are waiting for turbos from TTE. I'm sure your name is on one of them if you place an order, and we have more coming. But I think hopefully in the next few months we'll have that file. That will just be a relatively incremental tuning change. It should take a long time to do. We're currently just still buttoning up 710 stuff, and there's a couple of customers who had some tech support issues that we're dealing with. But all's good with the tune.
Yeah.
Do you do much suspension testing on Skyline Boulevard?
It's very specific.
There is a Skyline Boulevard in Mexico that we go to a lot,
Yeah.
and we drive really fast on Skyline Boulevard, Mexico. But that I will say the one around here, which we don't test on, because it's not in Mexico, is one of the best driving roads in anywhere I've seen. The only problem is there's a lot of bikers. So during the day, there's cyclists. And I used to know a cyclist who would ride up there with a handgun because he would be threatened by vehicles. And so, just to say, just to represent like how hairy it can get with bikes and cars up there. And now I'm a cyclist, and I can relate to that as well. But at night, there's no cyclists. That whole Highway 35 from the coast up is amazing. Page Mill Road coming down is one of the most exciting paved rally courses I've ever driven on. And then all the roads up into, I don't know, what are those towns? Ben Lomond.
84 towards the beach.
Yeah.
Road.
What are some of the cities in there?
La Honda.
The Honda up there.
I mean, it's just world class. The problem is it gets crowded on the weekends, and there's bikers and cyclists. But I've always dreamed of doing a road rally on Page Mill, just shutting that down on a Saturday, and just doing time trials up and down there. Preferably down it, but if you have horsepower, you can go up and do that too. But it's an amazing, incredible road. There's a section in there where you're at the top of second, and you turn left, and the car press, and you're literally airborne, and then you're just turning midair as you hit, and you're preparing yourself for the next corner, but your tires aren't even on the ground. And if you get it right, it feels like you're wall to roll.
There are some first gear corners there that
you can get into first two for sure. But then DSG is a revelation. I mean, I remember struggling with the manual through those turns, and now just with the DSG. But it's been a while since I've driven up there.
still won't.
Yeah, and it's not you need a suspension. You
Yes.
you need springs and
Not
dampers because it's a real. Other vendors sell the TT710 for significantly less than you have them on your website. What's the reason for this variation price? I don't know about that. We are selling at TTE's recommended retail price. It gives us a reasonable profit margin. We are spending six-figure amounts to bring in turbochargers and have them in stock. I fear other tuners that don't have any cash are probably waiting for you to order it, and then they're placing an order and they're using your money to order your turbo, and maybe they're in like their mom's basement doing business that way. I don't know. We could do some price shopping, but our goal at 034 Motorsport is never to be the cheapest. Our goal is to offer the best quality products with substantive performance and offer great, amazing service, and to be available and accountable to you, the customer, like Nate and I are right now, live on the air. That means that we can't do things the cheapest way. We need certain staff, we need resources. We're bringing products, putting them in stock. We have millions and millions of dollars of inventory. That money could be invested in the stock market or in commercial real estate, but instead we put the money into inventory and put it on our shelves here. I know a lot of tuning companies, they could, instead of putting products in inventory, they buy boats and fancy cars. They spend it on hookers and blow. I don't know what they do with their money, but we put our money into inventory and we have it on a shelf. So that means we have to generate a certain amount of income, and we can't do all that and be the cheapest. So that's why maybe you've seen some pricing variation. I wouldn't be surprised if those companies are forced to raise their prices at some point, because I do think TTE probably will not want them to hoard their products. Okay, let's talk pulleys. Pulleys here, and we get a lot of questions about.
Yeah, apparently there's been some confusion recently on what pulleys do and why you run different sizes.
So let's talk about these pulleys in reference to the different stages of tuning. So if you want to flash your car with a B8 3.0T or B8.5 or whatever variation of that, the first stage is referred to as stage 0. This is you simply flashing your ECU, and the ECU increases the boost of the supercharger using its boost control, very limited but capable boost control system.
Yep.
And you generate the initial stage 0 power increase.
Stage 1.
The stage 0 is no pulley at all.
Stage 1 is no pulley at all. Stage 1 is always just the software. And then stage 2 is a pulley modification.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, stage 1, I apologize, is no pulley. And so you would just flash the ECU and you would get the power.
Yep.
The supercharger won't necessarily spin faster, but there's a boost bypass system that allows the ECU to generate more boost using the supercharger.
Yeah. So the way the factory system works is there's a bypass valve that basically bleeds air around the compressor and the supercharger, so that Audi can, the OEM can control.
It's a little throttle body.
It's a tiny little throttle body, but it lets Audi basically specify exactly what they want to run for any given amount of boost. And they do that, you'd think with your foot to the floor, they'd give you everything the supercharger could do. But no, they actually tailor it so it's just this programmed flat profile of torque, which means there's quite a bit left on the table. If you were to keep that shut just from a stock pulley standpoint.
And we advertise all these power increases on our website, so feel free to look there if you have specific questions about that. So then stage 2 is a point where we will spin the supercharger faster in order to generate that additional boost. Now there's 2 different ways you can do that. You can do the supercharger pulley upgrade itself. So this pulley is smaller than stock, which causes the supercharger to spin faster. We sell a tool to remove this. You can do this from the top of the motor, and it's one way to do it. The other way that you can do stage 2 is you leave the stock supercharger pulley and you change the crank pulley lower. Which is what's driving the supercharger. And there's 2 options. There's a 179 and a 190 that we offer. Again, this is stage 2. Stage 2 would be either or, whichever one you decide. I'd say for the average person who's looking for a really nice increase in performance, who doesn't want to stress things as much and keep temperatures lower, 179 produces a great amount of power, just the 179 lower by itself. But the 190 can be used as well. And again, I think all these numbers are pretty
So let's talk also, I mean, the biggest factor here is the ratio, is how fast is the crank spinning to how fast is the supercharger spinning. So all of these you can literally just take and divide, you take the number of your lower pulley, divide it by the diameter of your upper pulley. So you 179 millimeter pulley divided by if it's OEM, it's a 63 millimeter OEM upper pulley. That's going to give you your ratio. So that's really what determines how quickly the supercharger is going to spin in relation to the motor. And for this combo, I've just got the ratios here so I can reference them. If you just do the upper, you're looking at about 2.81 to 1. So every time the motor turns once, the supercharger turns 2.81 times. If you do just the 179 and leave the stock, it's 2.84. So it's basically, essentially the same there. And then if you do just the 190 mil, it's 3.02. So it's definitely getting up there a good bit on the 190.
Yeah.
You'll be pushing most stage 2 files, potentially higher than what they normally do. What I've seen is guys at altitude like that option, or they'll run the 190, just get a little more air into the motor on a stage 2 file, because you're not going to be hitting the higher pressures that a stage 2 plus file would typically.
Yeah. So another option, instead of doing, so 2 plus is now.
So now we're getting in. Then we get into the 2 plus territory, which is generally anything that's like higher than a 3.0 pulley ratio.
All right, and so this 2 plus would be upper and lower. So you can do the upper and lower 179 or upper and lower 190, which is again more aggressive.
Yeah. So that's a 3.1 ratio for the 179 and the upper, and a 3.29 for the 190 and upper.
Conversely, for stage 2 plus, you can do just the lower, and this is our 207. Now, again, you do not do an upper with this. This was pretty controversial at one time because people thought like it rips itself off the motor. We came out with one, I don't know, 6 months ago. I think we've sold hundreds, and no reported problems. So I don't know what that was all about.
And this lands you exactly, basically, if you do the 190 and the upper, it's a 3.29. That's a 3.29 with a stock upper. So it's the same.
Stage 2 plus is the most aggressive. It pushes the supercharger as hard as it can be pushed safely, and it's what all the world records are set on. If you're going to run E85 and you have really good cooling, you've upgraded your intercooler and you have good cooling system modifications.
Yeah, I've got
that's going to be the fastest setup.
A little graphic here that kind of just shows. It's a lot of lines, but maybe screenshot it. You can look at it later, review this video later.
And it's hard to know what the lines.
This will be up on our. We've got similar graphs to this on our product pages already for some of the pulley combos.
Yeah.
We'll get the rest up just for clarity. But yeah, you can see kind of where things kind of weave back and forth depending on what pulley combo you've got, upper versus lower.
Yes, I mean there's some advantages. The lowers are it's a different installation than the upper, and then in a lot of cases these 3.0 T motors, the factory crank pulleys. Actually, where'd that one go? The factory crank pulleys are problematic.
Go. No, that's problematic.
That's
Just cranked it up with some crank pulley.
This is a factory crank pulley that has failed, and this is a harmonic damper that is rubber isolated. So there's an inner hub, and then there's a rubber vulcanization, and then there's the outer pulley, and these fail catastrophically, as you can see.
That one wound up a belt with it too.
Yeah, and it's got the serpentine belt wrapped around it. So by changing out the problematic factory pulley, thank you. These aluminum ones don't fail. There's nothing to break. There's nothing to fail. Certainly ours don't. There was one TV company that was having problems with theirs shearing in half, but it was just poorly engineered.
Yeah, they just done like some thin spokes and removed all the
material.
Yeah,
there were spokes you could see through it, and they removed way too much material for no reason. And these are lighter too than the factory pulley, so there's some benefits there. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes customers have concerns with, losing the harmonic balancer function. We have seen no issues with that in years and years. Thousands of engines running these. There's really no
if there were
issue.
Yeah, if that was a chronic problem, you'd see generally trashed like crank main bearing. Where that usually presents itself first. Particularly the leading bearing, but it'd be across the board with the crank.
Usually engine failures and things like that. We haven't seen.
The only crank bearing failure I've seen personally was due to a high pressure fuel pump issue installation.
Well, and that was
like filling, basically turned your oil into fuel,
filling your motor with gas. Yeah, that does not
doesn't lubricate quite as well.
Okay, so I think that's enough about that. If anyone has any questions about that,
Yeah, and just
follow.
reference the video too. This will go up on YouTube,
Mhm.
or it is up on YouTube, but we'll have clip outs and things, and you can.
I have one question from customers. They want to know: is there a measurable gain between the smallest and lightest combo versus the one huge noise? Basically,
Inertial differences. That's so tough to suss out on these.
It's marginal.
Yeah, it'd be super marginal, and I mean, yeah, in this industry, good luck getting that kind of A/B testing that's accurate enough to measure the rotational, force difference that you're going to see on ramp up with isolating all of the other variables, so all of your environmental conditions.
and they also want to know if there's any power differences between 57.7, 79, and just doing a 2%. Like, would they see any difference between?
I mean, that's basically the same as going if you went 57.1 in the 190 versus the 207. So I've said on here a lot, I prefer the smaller pulleys, but it really depends. That being the 179 and then the upper or just the 190. I mean, it depends what you're going to be doing with the thing. I prefer the smaller pulleys because my preferred driving events are road course stuff. So, you're in high gear, high RPM, high load stuff a lot more. Whereas some guys are out just, they want to have all the torque down low. They want to be able to, just blast an on ramp or two here and there, where you can run a bigger pulley ratio and maybe you're not dealing with as much heat soak. So, because the faster you spin the supercharger, the more heat you're going to make. So,
yeah, I mean, bigger pulley ratio is not always better. It's not always going to result in the most power or acceleration.
Yep.
But
we understand there's different driving styles too, so that's why we give you guys options.
There are, and none of these parts are terribly expensive, so it stands to reason. I mean, tuning B8s is not that expensive. You could max out and have the highest, stage 2 plus car for a paltry sum of money compared to
some of the other stuff out there. Yeah,
but you could spend an extra $1,000 on some of these parts and install them and go do your own.
And you can always resell the stuff if you find a combo that works for you.
You
just resell what doesn't.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think we have any strict recommendations based on the pretty big number of variables that are out there.
Yeah, it comes down to driving style and kind of what you're using the car for. That's going to be the most optimal.
Yeah. But don't think bigger is always better. It's not.
One thing to note there is the chart is so tight that
they're
overlapping.
There's overlapping because some of the combos are literally on top of each other. So we'll have more ratio information up because apparently some people have been asking about it recently. So yeah, we'll get more data or more info up. It's literally just divide the lower by the upper, and that's going to be your ratio. It's a linear, it's just a simple ratio. So multiply that by your RPM. There's a supercharger speed.
All right, let's move on. Someone's asking Stage 2 TTRS 8J versus RS500 upgrade. How much difference is there? It's about 50 horsepower up top. So from about 6,000 RPM to redline, the power grows on the RS500, and the stock turbo levels off at about 6,000 RPM and starts falling off. And the RS500 will continue to build power past 7,000 RPM. So if you never rev past 6,000 RPM, you're not really going to know or tell a difference. But the factory turbo runs out of steam, and the RS500 will continue to not only generate, so it generates 50 more peak power. But if you look at 7,000 RPM, it's probably closer to 100 horsepower difference. The factory turbo really falls off a lot. So above at close to red line, you're going to be much more than 50 horsepower. It's up to you. I mean, this is not like the kind of power gains we're seeing on B9 3.0T and stuff like that. But it's a very nice OEM plus turbo. If the factory released a bigger turbo, if you look at the Porsche 996 turbo and then there's the GT2, it's the X50 option was 50 horsepower from the factory. So it's very similar to what we're here. It's again factory OEM turbo. You could look under the hood, you'll be able to tell it's a turbo upgrade on that. Best way to improve 60-foot times on a TTRS 8S. Have stage 2 DSG upgrade and dynamic springs already installed. I mean, the best way to improve 60-foot times is with tires.
Tires and
Sticker your
vehicle setup
tire.
and track prep. It's tough to know with what you're working with here. If it's on the street or
But
rough surface.
regardless of where you are, if you put stick your tires on, you can optimize your 60-foot.
I think you're scrolled down to last week. So I gotta go.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay. Anyways, regardless, we answered that.
Yep.
Where do you see the auto industry and tuning industry in the next 20 years? That's a good question. I mean, I think in 20 years, automotive tuning will be largely centered around electric cars and electrification. I think companies that do internal combustion tuning will maybe be half the industry or something like that.
There's got to be a point where it's going to be a big shift.
But every auto manufacturer is committed, basically all of them, including Ford, Chevy, you name it. They're committed to selling basically only electric cars in like the next 10 years. This has been a shift that we've seen over the last 5 years that car companies have made on their own.
Yeah.
This isn't a regulatory requirement. California is talking about in 2035 making new internal combustion engine car sales illegal in California. So there would still be internal combustion engines, cars, lots of them. Most cars in California will still be at least in 2035, but they would put a requirement that if you want to sell to California, it has to be electric or non-polluting in any way. So yeah, I think it'll be very electrified. I think it'll be an exciting reality. Cars will be faster than they ever have been before.
Well, from an engineering standpoint too, right? I mean, you on a lot of these, sports-oriented setups, you've got literally wheel-dependent torque vectoring available that 100% to 0%
What you can do
per wheel. So yeah, I mean, performance and tractive, potential and optimization is just huge. You'll have cars that are going to be handling like nothing you've driven currently.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very exciting. There won't be cool car noises nearly as much. There'll be a lot of whining.
I'm sure you'll be able to download some noises soon. For most vehicles,
it's never going to sound like a really good ICE motor. That's just going to be one of the
depends on the external speaker setup they put in it.
Yeah, but it's just going to be some speaker making sound.
Makes it a speaker tip.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Muffler.
Tailpipe.
I mean, that is going to be, the raw excitement, the smells, the visceral, that is a big part of auto. Some of my earliest experiences and things that excited me about cars was how they sounded, how they felt. The top fuel dragster, every combustion event feels like a punch to your chest. You could build an electric motor that makes just as more power than that, or even faster, and all you might hear is some whining,
some tire chopping.
Yeah. So, but there's huge benefits everywhere else. So
it's to simulate gear change.
It'll be simulated gear changes. I mean, the CVT does it. Why not? It's going to be interesting too. And I don't know. Personally, I don't know if it's going to seesaw either, where we get to a point where battery production and power grid supply and all that stuff starts becoming a limiting factor, and maybe we have to oscillate back to some more combustion stuff for some applications. We're not ready for that full electric vehicle stage.
Well, no, yet. But I said 50%. I don't think.
Right.
I don't think ICE tuning is going anywhere anytime.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
50% is probably radical. It's probably in 20 years, probably still going to be like 70% or something.
Yep.
And 100 years from now, there will be people tuning internal combustion engines, just like there are people making and driving horse and buggies.
Well, and also look at it. I mean, it's still a strong and I'd say thriving B5 market out there, which is they're all 20-some years old now. So
but are you kidding?
Like Supercharged.
I think 10% of our business is selling tuning products for Audis from the 80s.
Yeah.
And
these cars don't just stop existing.
Yeah.
And if you want to be environmentally friendly, one of the biggest things you can do is keep an old car, within reason, an old car on the road and run. Yeah. It's a lot of resources to manufacture these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Once a car's been made, the most of the damage is done. And electric cars are actually dirtier than to make than internal combustion cars, but they more than make up for it over time. So same thing. If you can keep an electric car on the road for 20 years, it's a good thing. But I don't. The world is moving on and things are happening, and you can either like it or hate it. But the good news is you can keep doing ICE stuff for a very long time. I can see that going. Is stage 3 with a hybrid turbo on a B9 SQ5 safe? Well, it's very dangerous for your groceries. And so if your groceries are not properly secured, they could just go flying and smash and break everywhere. So it is really not. It's not as safe as, say, an S4 where there would be no groceries in it. No, I'm joking, but yes,
it's the exact same engine and transmission drivetrain that we've been just hammering on in our S4. We'll have more in-house here on our 710. We'll have 710 on our in-house SQ5 as well. We've got a number of customers running SQ5s with 710s on them already. I think honestly the first mass round of sales and flashes were to SQ5 owners on the 710. So
it's perfectly safe. You can. There's no difference.
No, it's the same as the S4.
To run E85 Stage 2 for B9 S4, do I need a fuel it kit or a P3, or can I just test E85 myself?
You can test it yourself. It's really obnoxious, and it's really easy to put in a fuel it kit once, and then you just.
I would say you need to put in a device that measures the E85 content at the front of the car. Where
that's a good
fuel
point.
is going into.
Yeah. Unless you're sampling from your fuel rail.
Yeah, because you can mix whatever you want and you can pour it in the tank. You just have no idea when it's actually in the motor. And for the cost and convenience of one of these kits, there's just really no reason not to do it. So yes, we have a video on our Uncut channel. Is it on the Uncut channel?
Yeah.
It is.
Go watch it. They're easy to install and they're not that expensive.
Yeah, that's on YouTube.
On our YouTube channel. It's called How to Install Fuel It Ethanol Content Sensor in B9/B9.5 Audi S4, S5, SQ5, or RS5.
Going for
That's a
search
very
indexing
034 product name. What else? Can the brakes you sell for B9 RS5 replace the OEM carbon ceramics or just the normal steel ones?
Just the normal steel. The carbon ceramics have entirely different calipers, rotors. You'd have to do a whole conversion to switch over to.
The only way you could upgrade your carbon ceramic rotors would be with other carbon ceramic rotors. Them continuing to be carbon ceramic is key, unless you convert it back to. But your pads and everything will not work.
The calipers, the pads, everything's different on the carbon cylinders.
And it's something you may want to consider. The carbon ceramics,
the carbon stuff
are very expensive.
I'm still surprised how many high performance road vehicles are coming with them, and the compromises that are kind of inherent to them.
Yeah. I have a 2014 RS5. I want my muffler to get the poppin' sound. I was told that bad for the engine. Is that true? And not if it's done correctly, the way we do it. It's not bad for your engine.
The factory does it. I mean, there's factory software, factory algorithms, factory tuning methods in there, literally for sound tuning out of the tailpipe on these. So we embrace and use the factory methods on all of the applications where they're available, and we've had exactly zero issues related to anything popping sounds. I don't. Unfortunately, we don't offer a tune for that vehicle currently. But if you find a tuner, just make sure that if they're doing pops and bangs, that they're correct. Yep.
I'm on a 3.33 PR E40 ported blower with water math injection, making 482 all-wheel torque, and keep snapping axles. You guys plan on making upgrade ones, or any idea what I can do to prevent field drag? Okay. I would just say contact Drive Shaft Shop. See if you can talk to Frank, and he will make you some new chromoly shafts that are twistier and springier than the factory ones. The factory ones are actually designed to break. They're not very strong.
Hopefully you don't have any other fuses that you're close to, but it's a good fuse to have in your driveline.
It is, but and to Nate's point, then the next thing down the line that will break will obviously not be an axle anymore if you upgrade yours.
Yep. It'll be
properly.
a diff, or
It could be a diff.
usually it's a diff.
It could be something in the transmission. Yeah.
But yeah, Drive Shaft Shop should be able to set you up, and they can. It depends on the exact build out. Sometimes they'll do just the shafts they'll send you, and you just use your inner and outer joints, because the joints are usually very high quality on the Audis.
Yeah, but they're very good. Bring back the VR6 Turbo Kit. Okay, how many do you want to buy?
Right, by 50 or 100, we might be able to do something.
I'd say 10. Consider it
10. Oh man,
Yeah, for
that's
10 we can
oh god,
Oh, absolutely.
that's so much work.
Yeah. No, it's just a matter of purchasing. I mean, we have everything done.
Well, software, and I mean, how big of a kit are we doing?
We had software.
Yeah, we did. We do.
All right, I think we're out of time.
Oh, jeez. I'm not even ready for that at all. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I'm ready. All right, guys.
Cool. Thanks
again,
everybody.
A lot of good questions. We
Yeah.
still have a lot sitting there, so
Sorry for spilling coffee, everyone.
keeping it real.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.